Joining me live now is former White House Chief of Staff, now at Bondi Partners, Mick Mulvaney. Great to see you. First of all, I want to talk about Ron DeSantis, a bit of a war on Disney at the moment, but you were at an event at the weekend. How was that?
It was really good. It was about 150 of his largest donors and supporters. It was more of a review of how he got reelected in Florida by a tremendous landslide in a really bad midterm for Republicans, and then also sort of forward-looking. It was sort of a campaign for president without being a campaign for president. Most noteworthy, though, Laura, I think, was the folks who were there. I recognized several people who were there who I had seen in the Oval Office with Donald Trump, men and women who had written 6- and 7-figure checks to President Trump, who are now becoming very public in their support for Governor DeSantis. So I thought that was an interesting development as this unofficial campaign between the two of them, between Trump and DeSantis, sort of gets heated up here.
Yeah, right. OK, so do you expect that he will give Donald Trump then a run for his money? And when do we see something formal from Ron DeSantis?
Yeah, I do think he's going to run, and I think he would give him a run for his money. The when is a good question because there's really no benefit to Ron DeSantis to announce him now. Nikki Haley had to do it because she has difficulty getting on television. There's going to be a couple other announcements from smaller candidates here in the next couple of weeks, folks who you probably haven't heard of because they can't get on TV. Ron DeSantis can get on television here any night he wants to. He's the governor of a major state. So there's really no benefit to him to go early. My guess is he may not announce until, if he does, until probably sometime early summer, late spring.
So what did you observe? You talk about donors that would ordinarily have donated to Donald Trump. How is Ron DeSantis pitching himself differently to that base?
It's pretty much the same as everybody else in the Republican. Well, that's not true. Most conservative Republicans are running as the same thing, which is Donald Trump without all the baggage. You have a couple of candidates sort of more in the center of the party, Liz Cheney and so forth, who's not announced yet either, who are running on different policies. But most of them are running on the exact same policies that Trump would offer and simply say, look, you don't get all the headaches with me. I'm a lot younger. I'm not crazy. You can get Trump policies without having to put up with Trump. That's going to be the message, I think, that DeSantis and Nikki Haley and Tim Scott and Mike Pence bring. What Ron DeSantis has that nobody else has is he is the governor of a major state, had a tremendously successful COVID experience, earned a lot of goodwill there. I think that's sort of his ace in the hole. What you're seeing is pitching himself is Trump light, the good parts of Trump without the bad.
Yeah, and the midterms were absolutely stunning for him as well. Let's talk about foreign affairs because there's a first meeting of the House Select Committee on Strategic Competition between the US and the Chinese Communist Party. That's tomorrow night. It does sound very pointy-headed, but it is going to get into a few things. I know you're close with Mike Gallagher. He's chairman of the committee. So, what are they going to look at? Spy balloons, that kind of thing?
Spy balloons, Huawei, TikTok. There's actually discussion here in this country now about banning TikTok. I don't think it will go as far as that, but it's a simple fact that the discussion is taking place sort of shows you where we are sort of politically vis-a-vis China. One thing I think that folks overseas miss a good bit is that this committee is actually bipartisan. Over 100 Democrats voted for the creation of this committee in the House of Representatives. So this has been a robust bipartisan sort of antipathy towards China. You know, I've been talking about this for months. You know, one of the few bipartisan things in Washington right now is a mistrust for China. Certainly the balloon episode a couple of weeks back didn't help that any. So both parties now are sort of pulling in the same direction when it comes to pushing back on Chinese interference in our economy, interference in our politics.
Interesting to see that the departments, even the CIA, can't really agree on the origins of COVID. Now, we saw the Energy Department this week say, you know, a lab leak could have caused the pandemic, but they had a low-level confidence in making that finding. Our own Sherry Markson here, of course, wrote a book about it, and she seems to be vindicated as the years go on. Where is this up to? And is this important in American politics at the moment, to actually land on a cause here?
It's important to American politics. It's important to policy. I think it's important to the world to know where this came from, because what you're seeing is that China is not to be considered amongst the world's leading countries. They're not a good actor. They don't follow the same norms that Australia and the United States follow. We're going to have some difficulty sifting through the data. It was unclear as to whether or not this was new information or a new interpretation of old information. It's unclear how long they've had this information. It's sort of unclear to me, as someone who used to work in the White House, as to why the Department of Energy, of all places, is doing this work, because it seems to have
why is that?
Component.
It seems pretty weird.
So you've got the energy saying one thing, FBI saying something else. You've got 4 different agencies saying that they don't really know. So it's part of our bureaucracy. But it is extraordinarily important, I think, that we sort of get the word out that China is the one here preventing the world from knowing what the true origin of this disease was.
Yeah, it's so extraordinary in hindsight. You look back and we all just kind of accepted, oh yeah, it was a bat out of a wet market where a lab leak from the Wuhan Institute, I mean, with coronavirus in their title, this is where these kind of things are tested, would so easily dismiss that it was a lab leak, whether that be an accidental or deliberate one. I think, you would lean towards perhaps accidental. You'd hope so, wouldn't you?
Think about, I'm more concerned with how China has behaved. I don't have any insight as to whether it came from a bat or came from a lab. I don't get it anymore. But think about how the world would be treating Australia if they were as secretive about this as China was. If it came from Sydney, from a lab perhaps in Sydney, and the Australians locked down the way the Chinese did and did not even allow international observers in. And to this day, if they were still fighting the international community when it came to the causes of this disease, you'd be a pariah, and rightly so. And for some reason, we treat China differently. I think that ties into a lot of the work the U.S. House is doing, this commission is doing. This attitude towards China is changing in my country. It's probably changing in more than just ours.